Welcome and karibuni to Aroma of Zanzibar. Today I'm going to share with you how we're going to make these beautiful calzones, which are basically stuffed pizzas. Now I usually like to make mine with whole wheat flour, but this time I'm going to try with Chucky fresh atta, or you could use any type of whole wheat alone or all-purpose alone, but I like to mix. So I've got 2 cups of Chucky atta and 1.5 cup of all-purpose flour. All right, so I'm going to start making my dough, and I have got 1 cup of lukewarm water over here, and we're going to add about 2¼ teaspoons of instant yeast. That's about 7 grams of 1 packet, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. All right, we're just going to mix this and combine it. And then after that, I like to add just 1 cup of flour, and I'm going to mix this. If you notice, this is the same process that I use to make my pizza dough. The only difference is I have mixed the flour, so I use this also for my pizzas when I want the whole wheat pizzas as well. So we're just going to mix this well, and then just going to let it sit. And this time we're going to let it sit for about 30 to 45 minutes. I'm trying to develop some kind of flavor, but if you don't want to, you can just let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. All right. Now, after I kept mine for about 40 minutes, and this is what I have. Just gonna mix it again, and then add the salt, which is 1 teaspoon, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We're just gonna mix it well. And then after that, I'm going to start adding the flour little at a time. You could use 1/2 cup or 1/4 cup or 1 cup. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to start adding and mixing, just trying to make a nice soft dough. I like the calzones with whole wheat flour. It has a nice, beautiful taste. Actually, like I mentioned, I even use this for pizzas, so it's something if you want to try, but if you don't, you can just go ahead and use all-purpose flour all the way. But I have not used whole wheat flour alone. I always like to mix it. All right, so we just keep adding the flour until it's completely finished. Right now I'm moving to my flat surface, which is not necessary, but if you want to, you can go ahead and do that. All right, so we're just going to knead the dough for about 7 to 10 minutes. If you want it chewy, if you don't want, then you can just cut down the time. Right, so the dough is a bit sticky, so just adding a little bit of olive oil there. Do not add any more flour. We don't want it, at least I don't want it to be very tough or hard, so I like my dough to be very soft. All right, so this is just ready now, and we're just gonna cover it, put it in a bowl, cover it, and this time I'm going to keep it for about 2 hours. Okay, so in the meantime, we're going to prepare the marinara sauce. I've got some tomatoes here that I have blanched them, and we're just going to remove the skin. If you have canned tomatoes, please go ahead and use those. And in my pan, I've got about 2½ tablespoons of olive oil. And I've got my onion. I'm using yellow onion, just about quarter cup or to 1/2 cup. And you're just going to saute this. Now, I did add some garlic here, but you can't see it. Yeah, there's a garlic as well. And then we're just going to saute this. I'm sorry, my camera was not in the right position. And then I add the dry basil. I would have loved to use fresh, but I could not get hold of it. But if you have that, that's really, really beautiful to use it in this sauce. Okay, so we just saute this for couple of minutes, and then I add the tomatoes. Unfortunately, also I could not get really ripe tomatoes, So mine kind of look orange, but it's ideal to use really, really ripe tomatoes. Okay, you get nice juices too. But this is not the right time to get ripe tomatoes where I'm at. Okay, so I'm just mashing them down as I cook. And then I added about a tablespoon of brown sugar. You could use white sugar as well. Now, the reason why I add the sugar is to cut down the tanginess. So if your tomatoes are nice and sweet, then you do not need to add any sugar. Then we're just going to add some salt as well. And then we're just going to let this cook. I covered it and let it cook for about 15 to 20 minutes until the tomatoes are really, really well cooked and they've released all those nice juices. Okay, so we're just going to cover it. And then about after 15 minutes, this is what I have. And we are going to use a blender to grind this, but if your tomatoes are soft enough, you can just use a potato masher and get a nice sauce. The sauce is kind of a little bit chunky, not really, really smooth, but if you want it smooth, then you can blend it very well. All right, so this is my sauce, and then I just add a little more of basil. I love some basil in this, the flavors are really, really good. We're just trying to have a nice, beautiful sauce. Now, my dough was really, really dry. As you can see, I ended up keeping it for about 5 hours. I had unexpected guests, but I'm still going to work with this. So I'm just going to mix it together and then knead it to release those dry patches that we got right on the top. Okay, so I normally make my calzones small size, like, for this recipe, I would do 4 or 6. But since I was running behind my schedule, I just did 2 large ones. And you just want to roll this. And you can make it any size you want, but I like to have mine on the medium size, not too thin and not too thick. But when you roll, you want to make the edges or the end a little bit thinner than the rest of the dough, because you're going to tuck this together, so you don't want to have a big thick chunk of dough in between, at the edge. All right, so as you can see, I'm just going to make it a little bit thin on the edges, just like that. And then gonna spread the sauce. Make sure your sauce is cool. And you can fill this with anything that you want. And I did some grilled chicken, which I marinated it with fresh ginger garlic and black pepper, salt, olive oil, and basil. Very, very simple. And I'm using the fresh mozzarella cheese that I shared the recipe with, which I had promised you guys that I'm going to come back with the recipe for this. The video for this on how I used it. And you're just going to tuck this and pinch it nicely. You can use any cheese, but fresh mozzarella cheese goes very well with calzone. All right, so we're just going to pinch it nicely like that. And you want to make sure it's really, really well tucked, because you don't want your sauces or your cheese, for that matter, to ooze out while baking. All right, and make sure the heat is ready. Mine is at 450 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 22 Celsius. Okay, then we're going to put it in a pan. You can use a tray, you can use whatever you have. I'm using a small pizza pan. And then we're going to poke some holes to get the heat or the moisture released while we bake. Okay, and after that, just egg wash so we get a nice golden color. And this baked for about 15 minutes at 450 degrees. I'm not going to show you the picture for this because the kids were really, really hungry. But we're going to see the second one, how it's going to turn out. All right, so this is already rolled. And we're just going to add the sauce, spread it out well. And I normally like to use sun-dried tomatoes, but I do have them, but I didn't want to use it I didn't want to confuse those who didn't have. Okay, then after that, after the chicken, I added caramelized onions and mushrooms and some black olives. And then the cheese again. So this is how I use the mozzarella cheese I've shared the video, so just in case you have not seen it, I will put the link in the description box below so you can see how you can make your own mozzarella cheese. All right, so we're gonna fold this just like how we did the first one. And you can shred the cheese, you don't have to put it in big slices like that. We're gonna tuck this in just like that. And sometimes I love to use spinach too on this. Okay. And you can serve this as a starter, or if you want to have it as a main dish, that would work as well. Then we're going to poke some holes. And then do the egg wash as usual. And for this one, I want to show you something different that I like to do. But if you don't want it, it's okay. We're going to sprinkle some Parmesan cheese. This gives an additional flavor, takes it to the next level. And we baked it, and you see how beautiful this is. I had already sliced it before the camera was on, so I had to do it again. And this is still hot. And it's really, really nice when you serve it hot, or warm for that matter, not too hot. And then we're just gonna put it in a plate, or if you wanna eat it just like that, that's fine. It's beautiful and golden, as you can see. And then we're gonna have our marinara sauce for dipping. Okay, and this is how, can you see how beautiful this cheese has melted? So thank you so much. For more recipes, please visit me at Aroma of Zanzibar. You'll find all the ingredients and measurement on this page and in the description box below.